We've got breaking news that's coming through from the White House. It is from Donald Trump saying that an agreement with Iran has been largely negotiated. He's saying that final aspects and details are yet to emerge and they're currently being discussed and will be announced shortly. This is what he had to say. He said he had a very good call with President Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan of the UAE, Emir Tamim bin Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, the Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdurrahman bin Jassim bin Jabbar Al Thani, and the Minister Ali Al Khawadi of Qatar. Field Marshal Saeed Asim Munir, and this is a big list of people that he's actually had a talk with. He said that he'd spoken with leaders of several majority Muslim countries, including, as we just mentioned, the Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi of Egypt. In fact, a wide list of people there across the Middle East, all concerning the Islamic Republic of Iran and all things related to a MOU, or a Memorandum of Understanding, pertaining to what he said, peace in capital letters. An agreement has largely been negotiated, subject to finalization between the USA, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and various other countries as listed. Separately, he said he had a call with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, which likewise went very well. Final aspects and details of the deal are currently being discussed and will be announced shortly. Now he goes on. And goes on to say, in addition to many other elements of the agreement, the Strait of Hormuz will be opened. And he's signed off, as usual, with thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So this is what we have at the moment of social media, Truth Social, I should say there as well, that statement. Let's get over to Washington, where Paddy Culhane joins us. Paddy, give us a sense of the reaction there, from this statement on Truth Social.
Well, no reaction just yet, but I think there were some people who heard this was coming. We heard from Senator Roger Wicker. He's a very powerful Democrat when it comes to, very powerful chairman of the Defense Committee in the Senate. He's a Republican. He put out a tweet earlier and said, if the 60-day ceasefire it goes through and they believe the Iranians are going to act in good faith, it would be a disaster, saying that the whole Operation Epic Fury would have been for naught. We've obviously we're going to hear more from Republicans. Put this in a bit of a sense of, obviously, we don't know the details of the deal. But just let's take a step back and think about the pressure U.S. President Donald Trump has been under. Probably one of the more striking things that happened this week is the House had to cancel a vote on the War Powers Resolution Act because the Republicans were going to lose. They've had several votes, which would basically tell the president, enough, no more war in Iran. They've always been able to have the Republican numbers to make sure that it didn't pass. Just Thursday, it was supposed to come up for a vote. The leadership took a look around, didn't have the votes. They were going to lose it, so they canceled the vote. The Senate has also been ticking in that direction. So there's the political pressure. But beyond that, there is the poll numbers. Donald Trump's poll numbers are the lowest they have been in his second term, especially when you talk to people about the economy. The vast majority of Americans say they disapprove of this war. The only group that supports it, and a majority, is Republicans, and especially those who consider themselves MAGA Republicans. Independents, Democrats, Republicans who don't identify as MAGA, across the board think this was a mistake, not worth the cost. And the costs are piling up. The gas prices are the highest they've been in 4 years. People feel that, and not only when they drive, but when they go to the grocery store, because now a lot of products have fuel surcharges on them. So everything's been more expensive. Farmers are particularly have been hard hit because fertilizer, a lot of it comes through the Strait of Hormuz. That hasn't come in, and so the prices have spiked. A lot of farmers say they simply can't afford to fertilize their crops, which means they're going to have a much smaller output when it's time to harvest. So there were the economic pressures piling up. There were the poll numbers dipping. There was the pressure from the Republicans in Congress. So the president, I think, was feeling that he had to make a deal. Now, exactly how he's going to try and sell that deal, well, we won't know until we see what's actually in it.
Paddy, thanks. Paddy Culhane there, live in Washington, D.C. Now, Al Jazeera's Ali Hashem has reported extensively on Iran. He joins me right here in the studio to unpack all of this. It gives a sense of, we've not heard anything from Iran yet, but certainly we're getting this reply out of Washington, and specifically, of course, Donald Trump.
Well, Rashad, what we read from President Trump's Truth Social post for now isn't final, but at least he's saying that the deal is largely negotiated. He briefed the regional leaders and also the Israeli Prime Minister on this. So there are some advancements, developments with respect to what's being spoken about. What are the points that still need to be fine-tuned? Of course, we'll have to wait and see the Iranian narrative on this. Are they also accepting the fact that there is a deal?
It's more or less, it strikes me at the moment, it's an interim arrangement. This is a memorandum of understanding here. So we haven't got the grand bargain, as it were, and this is probably a framework for talks to begin in the longer term.
This is what the Iranians offered from the beginning, to do a kind of an understanding to end the war, announce the end of the war, and give guarantees that this is not going to be repeated, then go to negotiate the details. The main details, the beef. What's going to happen with the uranium, the highly enriched uranium? Are they going to stay in Iran? Are they going to be diluted? Are they going to be moved to Russia, to China, to the United States? These are issues that are going to be discussed. The Iranians are insisting they're not going to move them from Iran. The Americans want them outside Iran. This is one issue. Another issue, the Strait. What's going to happen to the Strait?
These are the two big sticking points, aren't they?
The Iranians are insisting they have sovereignty over the state, and they are going to run the state. Now they have also a kind of an authority that is running the movement there. How is this going to be dealt with? Are the Iranians and the Americans going to reach a certain understanding to create a new body to run the strait, or the strait will be open for everyone? These are the main questions, because...
In fact, Ali, I think we've got more questions now than we did before.
You know why, Rashad? Because post-2026 war is absolutely different from what used to be before. There is a new system in the region. There's a new Iran that is going to emerge. There's a new American-Iranian relations, and there's a new status quo. How is this going to happen, and what is going to be Israel's position on this? Because if the ballistic missiles issue is not going to be solved, what are the Israelis going to say, and how are they going to react, and how they're going to deal? And what's going to happen to the other fronts, especially when the Iranians are insisting that the war in Lebanon should stop? So, as you were saying, we have more questions than we have answers.
Hold that thought, Ali. Ali Hashim with us here. Let's get over to Tehran itself and get over to Al-Miqdad Al-Rohaid. He's live for us there. Al-Miqdad, have we heard anything from officials there in the Iranian capital?
Well, actually, not yet, but we can understand that what has been said from Donald Trump is aligned with what Ismail Baqai, the spokesman for Foreign Ministry, has said on the last few hours on Saturday evening. He actually said this line: in the past week, we reached what he called a convergence of views on the memorandum of understanding. So the both sides right now trying to say that we are very close to reach an agreement. From Iranian side, they are emphasizing the idea of to reach an agreement of ending the war on all fronts, including the war of Israel on southern Lebanon. After that, they are proposing sequencing of the most critical issue. So Donald Trump right now saying that the agreement is highly negotiated. The main fundamental framework is highly negotiated. But at the same time, the Iranian here demanding a trust, because they are sending a dual message. Ismail Baqai also said we are very close, and also at the same time we are very far from reaching an agreement. So that contradictory message from Ismail Baqai give us a clear sense of that the point, the message, the talks have highly negotiated. They are very close to reach an agreement, but at the same time, the deep mistrust between Americans and Iranians is still in place, it still remains. So What we can expect from Iranian right now is a cautious diplomacy. This is what we have been learning from Iranian from the past stance. They are saying that we have to wait and see the next step from the Americans, because they are saying that there's a rhetoric, threatening rhetoric from Americans. At the same time, they are speaking about contradicting diplomacy from the United States. So this, what Ismail Baqai has said in Saturday evening, he said also that we will wait 4 to 3 days to see whether there will be a genuine breakthrough, or it's another round of temporary tension, or another round of fragile ceasefire, rather than reaching an agreement. So they are proposing double tracks, prepare for any round of confrontation. At the same time, sequencing of the complex issue, starting by what we can call a fundamental core for the Iranian, ending the war on all fronts, especially the Lebanon. They are showing flexibility on the Strait of Hormuz, because they are saying that, according to our sources, they can reopen the Strait of Hormuz, ease the tension in the Strait of Hormuz, if the United States lift its navy blockade on the Iranian ports. At the same time, they are demanding that for the United States troops to withdraw from the region. So this is the main demand for Iranians right now, to go further with the negotiations to reach an agreement. But overall picture, we are seeing that a very good shift from crisis management right now toward building a framework toward reaching an agreement on the midterm, at least, because they are saying that within 30 days we can see that the implementation of this agreement, the ending of war on all fronts, the United States demonstrate that on the reality on the ground. After that, open the most critical issues, which is the nuclear file, which is the high stockpile of highly enriched uranium on the region.
Al-Migdad Al-Ruhaili, thank you very much indeed, live for us from Tehran. Let's get you back to Washington. Paddy Culhane is there still for us. And Paddy, what more do we know about these meetings which took place with J.D. Vance and Donald Trump and various other top officials?
Well, before the meeting even took place, the U.S. President Donald Trump was on the phone to a couple of different reporters. He sent the message to CBS that Iran had moved in his direction, and then he spoke with Axios, and he said at the time, and this was, I'm going to guess, about 6 or 7 hours ago. And he said he was 50-50 at that point. 50% of him was leaning towards relaunching military strikes. 50% of him was leaning towards the deal. And then he said he was going to have his national security team at the White House. They were going to talk, and then he'd likely make a decision Sunday evening, just so in about probably about 24 hours from now. So he really left it open and up in the air. But then the phone call really seems to have changed his, if he was 50-50, that phone call seemed to push him over the line. We do know Marco Rubio obviously wasn't there. He's in India, but he obviously could come in with a secure connection. But we seem to know that the meeting was taking place because J.D. Vance's motorcade was spotted racing towards the White House. And so we believe he was in the room, not sure who else was there. Donald Trump, when he made the decision to launch this war in Iran, is believed to have kept it to a very small circle. And let's not forget, he had said when this all happened that who knew that they'd close the Strait of Hormuz, and no one could have predicted that they'd attack U.S. allies in the region, when in fact that has been the military's advice to presidents for decades when it comes to the potential conflict with Iran, that the Strait of Hormuz would close and there are no good options to reopen it. And we saw that with some questioning for the central commander at the Senate hearing that I was covering, and that one of the Democrats said, you could open the Strait of Hormuz, is that correct? And he said, yes, we could. We did, Project Freedom. And then she said, okay, so that was 2 ships. If you could reopen it, why aren't you reopening it? And his answer was, we want to give time for diplomacy to take hold. So a lot of people skeptical that the U.S. military actually had the ability to open the Strait of Hormuz. And that became an increasing problem for this president because of the impact it is having on the economy. economy. And the constituents are calling members of Congress from both parties, complaining every single day. The calls are increasing. And so the Republicans and in the Senate, in the House, they were really feeling the pressure to try and get this president to rein it in. Now, we are hearing from some of the more right-wing Republicans. I'm sure we'll hear from Senator Lindsey Graham, who has been urging the president to continue military strikes. We've heard from Senator Roger Wicker, who didn't want to see this happen. So we will hear those voices. Democrats, for their part, you can already see what their playbook's going to be. They're going to come out, and once we know the details, they're going to say, what did this actually accomplish because of the impact that it's had? And for a broader perspective, this is Donald Trump, who ripped up President Barack Obama's JCPOA, which was negotiated with many countries in the world, that put a cap on Iran's nuclear program. In his first term, he got rid of it, and he said he's going to make a bigger deal. Then in the second term, twice while he was negotiating with Iran, the U.S. bombed Iran. And so then the question becomes, what deal can he sell that is better than the JCPOA? He often complained that Joe Biden, President Barack Obama, President Biden, that they sent plane loads full of cash to the Iranians, and his followers, his supporters really latched onto that. They didn't quite understand that it was Iranian money that was frozen in bank accounts. But now the president, and he said the sanctions relief shouldn't have happened. So now we're going to have to really look at what this deal is. If the Iranians are getting their money, which they've demanded, if the sanctions are lifted, if the President Trump doesn't have anything more to show for it than what President Barack Obama did, the Democrats are going to pounce on that, and they're going to make sure that they talk about that every single day, as well as the economic toll it's taken.
Paddy Culhane there for us in Washington, D.C. Now, Richard Weitz is a senior fellow at NATO Defense College, and he joins us now from Prague. Thank you so much for joining us, Richard. This throws up more questions than it really answers at the moment. A memorandum of understanding is what we have. We don't know the details. We don't know anything about the nuclear side of things. All we know is that the Strait of Hormuz is likely to be opened up. What are you making of it?
As you just said, we don't know for sure what the terms are, but I think we have a general idea based on media leaks and so on over the past few days that Iran has agreed to a pause on its enrichment. The question is how many years? Is it 10? Is it 20? Is it somewhere in between? I think the inspections of the Iranian nuclear activities was earlier accepted as involving typical IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency inspections. What I don't know is what's going to happen to Iran's existing stockpile of highly enriched uranium. The Iranians wanted to keep it, the Americans wanted it, and the Russians offered to take it. So it could be any of those three, and it might involve all three. Maybe they'll divide it. Strait of Hormuz being open sort of leaves question under what rules. Do we revert back to the pre-war rules for transit, maritime transit through the straits, or is there going to be a new arrangement? If so, what kind? Are there any fees involved? What are the rules of passage? Who governs it, and so on? So, I think some things we know, some things we don't know, and we can surmise what the known unknowns will be.
Yeah, and Richard, I mean, how far is this also perhaps a way of not getting the grand bargain as we were talking about earlier, but having this memorandum of understanding? Is it face-saving for both sides and for both parties?
That's a possibility. It could be that the agreements are too wide at present to resolve, so they're going to agree on what they can for now and then continue for a month, 2 months to try and see if they can resolve the other issues. Certainly, I think they and others would gain from some solutions to some of the issues. But there were many other issues that I'm not quite sure what's going to happen to them. The Iranian proxies, Iran's missiles, and and drones and, question of Lebanon and some of the other things your correspondents mentioned. So I could see why, if this was so complex, they might go for a staged agreement, initially agree on what they can for now.
Richard, hold that thought. Richard Weiss there from the NATO Defence College. Well, Ali Hashim is still with me here in the studio. This Pakistani mediation took place, but let's not forget the role of the Qataris and other Arab states which have also been sending dignitaries to Tehran to try and get some kind of deal done.
Well, interestingly, over the past few days, Qatar played a huge role, also besides the Pakistani role. And this gives an indication how much the regional efforts were crucial to reach, at least for now, there's no announcement, but at least to reach this moment, the moment that we are close to an announcement. Now, regardless of what's going to be the announcement. Aside from that, my understanding is that the main issues that are on the draft are ending the wars on all fronts, including Lebanon, freeing several billion of dollars of Iran's blocked funds, lifting the naval blockade on Iran, and also at the same time, Iran opening the strait, and the withdrawal of American forces from the vicinity of Iran, from the areas around, directly around Iran. So now, these are still wide. So you can say the vicinity of Iran is directly around Iran, or it could be wider than that. Now, how are these issues going to be reflected on papers later? If this is going to be announced, if this is going to be accepted by President Trump,